South Africa was thrust into a deep political and financial storm today as the High Court issued a landmark ruling ordering President Cyril Ramaphosa to fully account for all offshore accounts linked to him. The decision, delivered in a terse and uncompromising verdict early this morning, sent shockwaves through the African National Congress and triggered a crisis that threatens to destabilize the ruling party at its core. Within minutes of the ruling, analysts, legal experts, and political observers were in unanimous agreement. The judiciary had drawn a line in the sand, making it clear that even the sitting president of the republic is not exempt from the standards of transparency and accountability demanded by the law. According to the court's order, President Ramaphosa must disclose every financial investment, bank deposit, and offshore transaction connected to him, whether directly or through intermediaries. The language of the ruling left no room for ambiguity. Judges emphasized that transparency in matters of public finance is not optional, nor can it be deferred or hidden behind political privilege. Legal scholars observing the case noted that the decision emerged against the growing backdrop of allegations accusing the president of embezzlement, diversion of state resources, and the unlawful movement of public funds into private offshore accounts. These accusations, once considered speculative or politically motivated, have gained weight in recent months as investigative journalists and whistleblowers raised red flags about unexplained financial movements linked to individuals close to the president. The court's decision carries severe potential consequences. Should President Ramaphosa fail to comply fully and honestly, he could face fines, contempt of court, and even possible criminal charges. In the view of legal analysts, the ruling represents one of the most powerful judicial interventions against a sitting president since the early days of South Africa's democracy. It is a moment, they say, that could reshape the political landscape and set a precedent for how the country confronts abuse of power at the highest levels. Within the ANC, the ruling triggered panic and uncertainty. Party insiders, speaking on condition of anonymity, admitted that the High Court's demands threatened to reveal years of entrenched corruption within the organization, including at senior leadership levels. There are growing fears that some African National Congress leaders may have been aware of, or even participated in, the financial dealings associated with the president's offshore accounts. Such a revelation would deepen existing factions within the party and escalate an already tense internal struggle between pro-Ramaphosa loyalists and opposition blocs seeking an opportunity to reclaim influence. Political analysts believe the crisis could critically weaken the ANC's hold on government. South Africa's opposition parties have long accused the ruling party of shielding corruption and prioritizing political loyalty over integrity. With this ruling, they sense an opportunity to gain ground, challenge ANC dominance, and rally an increasingly frustrated electorate. Across the country, citizens, long disillusioned by instances of corruption, mismanagement, and lack of accountability, reacted with intensity as the news spread. Many saw the court's decision as a turning point, proof that powerful individuals can indeed be compelled to answer to the public. Within hours of the ruling, social media platforms were ablaze with hashtags demanding swift justice and total financial transparency from the president. Some posts expressed disbelief that such allegations, long whispered about, had now been thrust into the open by the judiciary. Others expressed anger, arguing that funds allegedly hidden offshore may have been the very resources desperately needed to repair South Africa's struggling schools, collapsing hospitals, and decaying infrastructure. One Johannesburg resident voiced the sentiment shared by many, stating that if the allegations are true, it would amount to a betrayal of ordinary citizens who rely on their leaders to protect public resources, not plunder them. Despite the uproar, President Ramaphosa has not yet issued a full public statement addressing the court's order. However, those close to the presidency reported that he intends to comply with the legal requirements, even as he appears visibly shaken by the magnitude of what lies ahead. Observers noted that the president now stands under unprecedented scrutiny, not only for potential legal breaches but for the political fallout that could follow. In the coming days, the president must deliver detailed financial records to satisfy the court's demands while simultaneously attempting to calm the growing dissent within his party and the broader public. Legal experts have warned that the High Court's decision may be only the first step in a cascading series of legal actions. Should investigators uncover evidence confirming that the president knowingly diverted public funds into private offshore accounts, he could face charges including fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, and violations of public trust. Such charges would send shockwaves throughout the political system and likely lead to calls for impeachment or immediate resignation. Inside the ANC, the ruling is already accelerating existing turbulence. Figures within the party who have long criticized the president's leadership now see an opportunity to push for restructuring, leadership change, or forced resignation on the grounds of ethical failure. Others worry that infighting will damage the party irreparably, weaken its governance effectiveness, and erode public support ahead of future elections. Analysts warn that the African National Congress, already grappling with declining voter confidence, cannot afford another scandal of this magnitude. Legal commentators emphasized that the ruling's significance extends beyond the president himself. It represents a statement about the strength of South Africa's democratic institutions and their ability to assert authority even over the most powerful office in the nation. It is, they argue, a reminder that judicial oversight remains a vital pillar of governance, particularly when the systems designed to ensure accountability appear compromised by political influence. The timing of the ruling could not be more disruptive. South Africa is currently battling a series of converging crises. A fragile economy marked by high unemployment, prolonged load shedding, escalating crime, and public service institutions strained to their limits. The ruling places further pressure on a government already struggling to maintain stability. Analysts say the intense legal scrutiny now directed at the president risks distracting attention and energy from essential governance duties, potentially worsening public frustration and political instability. Beyond domestic borders, international observers and financial institutions have begun watching developments closely. Concerns about the misuse of public funds, lack of transparency, and weakened governance could have implications for foreign investment, credit ratings, and global economic partnerships. Analysts warn that uncertainty surrounding the president's financial affairs may raise doubts among investors about South Africa's overall financial stability and government integrity. In response to the ruling, investigators, including forensic auditors and anti-corruption units, are expected to meticulously examine the president's financial disclosures. These teams will analyze account histories, cross-reference international financial movements, and look for signs of illicit transfers, shell corporations, or financial concealment. Any irregularities discovered could intensify the crisis and dramatically reshape the political narrative in the days ahead. Opposition parties and civil society organizations are already calling for the disclosures to be made public, arguing that transparency is essential to restore trust and protect the credibility of South Africa's democratic institutions. Many activists insist that full public access to the president's financial records is necessary to ensure that justice is not negotiated behind closed doors. They argue that failure to meet the High Court's requirements could lead to mass protests, a surge in political activism, and renewed demands for the president's resignation. The ruling has also exposed deep frustration among citizens who feel increasingly betrayed by leaders entrusted with safeguarding national resources. For many, this latest scandal is not an isolated incident, but part of a long pattern of corruption and mismanagement that has eroded public confidence. Across the country, conversations among ordinary South Africans reflect a shared sentiment: the time has come for accountability, no matter how painful the consequences. Ultimately, the High Court's decision marks what many analysts are calling a watershed moment in South African politics. It is a test not only of President Ramaphosa's credibility but of the ANC's future, the resilience of the country's democratic institutions, and the public's faith in the rule of law. The coming weeks will determine whether the government can withstand the pressure, whether the president's disclosures will satisfy the judiciary, and whether the ANC can survive the internal fractures that now threaten to tear it apart. South Africans, along with observers around the world, now watch with bated breath as the nation enters a historic confrontation between law, governance, and accountability. What unfolds next will shape South Africa's political future for years to come, and determine whether the country emerges strengthened by transparency or weakened by scandal, mistrust, and division.